Royalty, royalty, power to the chosen people.
Genesis 49, and we're actually going to read 8 through 12. So we're not going to not going to give you a half-witted example, because this is more conceptual than it is a word. I'm going to give you a bunch of words throughout this, but it's more of looking at something through a different lens. So it can be two things. It could show how my personal bias, or what I believe, can be interpreted if I interpret something from Hebrew. But it can also show how a person who has no connection to the culture of the people would overlook something or translate something a different way. So you'll get to be the judge. Genesis 49, 49 is dealing with Yaakov, and he's blessing his children. So he's talking about each of them, and he's talking about them physically and what they're good at, and how they're going to be, and what their descendants, the characteristics that you see in your children, right? So I'm going to deal with Judah, specifically. And so when he gets to Judah, he says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Binding his fowl unto the vine, and his ass colt unto the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. This is the part we're going to deal with. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Okay. Does anybody understand what somebody's eyes being red with wine or their teeth being white with milk has to do with anything? Does that make any sense? Does it really fit there kind of at all? Okay, so we know that a person whose eyes would be red with wine, he would be drunk, right? Which is a sin of a huge magnitude, because then as a king you would be impaired, you couldn't do anything, and Judah's supposed to be the king. So I was reading this last night, totally so far, I didn't even have a word for you guys, and it was like 9 something, and I'm reading over this and I'm like, I wonder if that's actually what that means in Hebrew. I do that a lot. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. So immediately, I know what red is in Hebrew. Red in Hebrew is Adom. It's the same from Adam, Adamah, brown, red, right? So I'm like, okay, let's see if that word red is actually red in Hebrew. So I just pulled up, your little interlinear Bible. And the first thing that pops up is the word Chalili. That's not red. Chalili shall be red. Chalili. Okay. Or Chalili. I'm sorry, Chalili. So I was like, that's interesting. So it's an adjective. So immediately I click it, because I'm like, I'm just going to see how this takes me, And the word means dull. I'm like, dull? That's very English and abstract. So dull. Okay. Click it again to get to this original root. So the Strong's number is 2444, or 2447 for Chalili, and Haklili, and 2444 for its origin or root, and it literally means dark. So immediately red is out, and now we have dark. So his eyes shall be dark. And I was like, okay. All right, that's interesting, right? So then I went back, and went back to that verse. Okay, so his eyes shall be dark from wine. Okay, now it makes less sense than it did before. At least if your eyes are red with wine, you're drunk. So then I looked at the word eyes. Now we know the word ayin, right, means eye, but it also means to see or experience, right? So immediately a person who's disconnected from the culture, when you see ayin, you automatically go, oh, eyes. It's their eyes. And that's not exactly the only meaning for eyes. So I think I showed you guys this last time, but it was that etymological dictionary, right? where you can find the first time a word is used and how it's used and why it's translated different ways. So I looked in there, and of course it has eyes. So Genesis 3:5, Yah tells them, as soon as you eat of this, your eyes will be open. Okay, so it's dealing with, you see an eye immediately. But that was number 4 in the list of what ayin meant. The very first thing on there was Numbers 11:7, and it had to do with the word appear. So how something appears. Okay, so immediately I'm like, okay, let's see what Numbers, let's see what Numbers 11:7 says. What even is Numbers 11:7 talking about, and how is it related to the word ayin, or how something appears? So I pull it up, and it's the verse that says, and the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof as the color of bdellium. And so it literally says it appears as bdellium. Anybody know what bdellium looks like?
Brown.
It's brown. So bdellium looks like this. Okay? So we saw that the word chachlili meant dark, and then when you went to Numbers 11:7 for the word appears, the thing it gave you, or the connection it gave you, was that the manna appeared dark. So then now you have this relationship, how something can look or be perceived. So then I went back to Genesis 49, and I was like, okay, so if I take the first part, and it says, his eyes, or his appearance, shall be dark, not from wine, but similar to wine, or like wine. So I was like, let me look at some wine, right? So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. The wine stands, because I can see how then you can say something would be dark, like, or similar to wine, right? And then I was like, Now I'm inferring things. Like I said, this could be my own bias. And it says, so his appearance shall be dark, like wine, and his teeth white with milk, or like milk. And I said, whoa, hold on. I can think of about maybe 20 people off the top of my head that probably fit this description. And then something else immediately came to my mind as I was reading. One of the things that the Negroid, or the black person in America, used to be made fun of was his white teeth and his black skin. So a lot of you will be familiar with this. You'll be familiar with this.
The watermelon.
Right? So you see this black skinned person with these white teeth, and he's just cheesing and a grinning, right? The next one you guys are probably familiar with a Jemima. She is a dark skinned woman with white teeth, okay? Then here's another image. She evolved over the years. Here she is again. You have this dark-skinned woman, these white teeth. Okay. Here she is again. It was like the thing when you put a black person, they had this look. So after that, I was like, okay. Now a person might say, well, that could be relative, right? And then I was like, okay, so can I see any modern day people with wine or dark colored skin? So, and I didn't pick this picture because he was naked. I picked the picture, well, partially half, but I picked the picture because this is a football player, Des Bryant, right? And obviously the angle makes him probably look a lot darker than he actually is in real life. But you can see this visage. You take a warrior, because remember our warriors are like gladiators now. They do it for sport. They're not actually fighting anybody, except for those who actually are in the military. But you see this image. Okay, so I was like, okay, so we do have people that look like that. Here's another guy. Now he has more red skin. His skin is red, like literally, like the wine that I showed. And then you have Chad Ochocinco. Dark-skinned man, bright white teeth. So then I know the nature of humans is saying, well, now you guys have modern dentistry, so all y'all Negroes probably got white teeth. Okay.
They don't have dental insurance.
So then I found some more people. So, nowadays they paint like every African has, or person has jacked up teeth, where you're just picking a small demographic of people with that particular problem. Okay, so here's another lady. Look at her teeth. They're white. Right? There's another person, dark skin, white teeth. Red skin, actually, white teeth. And here's another brother with dark skin. Okay. And just by, just for giggles, blonde hair, dark skin. Okay. So immediately I saw something interesting about Judah. The reason why this even came into my mind is because we're constructing some information, and one of the things we've been looking at is that sometimes you can paint with a wide brush when you're dealing with all of Israel. You have to take into consideration diversity. But the very interesting thing about the so-called African American, the so-called Negro, is that even in this land where there has been rape and mixture and intermingling, those who retained the more melanin than others then also pass that down to their descendants. And you can see it. So you have a forefather, Judah, way back here, who Yah says, okay, this particular person looks like this. And then as you look through and you follow the captivity and the slave trade in these people, that because of this strong melanated gene, this is one of the traits that stays with this particular people. Now, I don't know if I can make that argument for all the people based upon their dispersion, but when it comes to Judah, one of those things that I could be making up or is there, is that he has a dark visage, and it's something that has followed him. And I showed you that something that also was something that became a byword for him. He became the Samba with the white teeth, or the Aunt Jemima, those white teeth and that dark skin, is something that followed this particular people group all the way. He said, this will be your people. This is Judah. And it's very interesting because one of the things about how we look and where we are and how to find us scripturally is that we still carry these traits. I'll probably deal with next week how the women of Judah specifically carry a trait on their heads that's not seen on any other people group on the planet. And he gives us these two things because we need to be identified first, because Judah is the king and the leader of all the tribes. And so he puts these identifying factors and he preserves them like it's like genetic providential care. I'm going to preserve this group this way so that when they see you, they know who I'm talking about.